Dustin Young, Lone Roamer. Today we're going to talk about the newest product, not new anymore, but newest product I've ridden from Vorsprung, which is the Secus. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think it's good at. We'll go through the tech specs, what it's supposed to improve, what my experience is. More importantly, we're going to talk about my wife's bike, where it had huge improvement gains, and why I think everybody who is like my wife should have one. I think I think it's a game changer for them, and I'll get into that. All right, what is a Secus? Well, a Secus is an add-on to an air system that's available for quite a few different air forks. You can go to Vorsprung's website, figure out if it'll fit yours, that increases the negative air chamber. It's an enlarged negative air chamber. So you get that initial supple feeling in a bike, but it's quite a bit bigger, and it's got valving built in to really improve mid-stroke support, and it does that very well. I have yet to experience it where I thought, gosh, I sure wish I had much higher mid-stroke support. If anything, sometimes I think, gosh, I feel a little stuck in the mid-stroke once in a while and would like to get through that even better. That might be a setup issue. I'm not 100%, but the reality is it works. It is doing what they're describing it is doing. And then, so the first 2/3 of the travel is very different than your traditional stock air spring that came in your fork. The last third, well, it's ramp up time. It's behaving like a regular fork. You're in your most progressive area of every fork, and it's going to ramp. And then if you add tokens, which you can do, OEM tokens still work. And the DRD runt and the MRP ramp control can still be used with this system. So pretty cool. You get a lot. You get a lot of adjustability. You can start to get pretty crazy. I don't run either one of those. I'm sort of interested in that runt system, but for now, I think I'm one token for the ramp up for when I do get off of something bigger and I want more resistance to bottoming out, and that's it in my Fox 36. Okay, this is a Grip 2 edition, and it's white on a Yeti. I know it is stolen. Are you ready? If you want an all-white one, well, buy a Mondraker or find somebody who's selling theirs off their Mondraker, because they're the ones who have all-white Fox 36 forks. So just in case you're curious how an all-white Fox 36 fork ended up on a Yeti. All right, so one thing you remember, I said it in another video, if you decided that the first improvement you made was a Luftkappe and now you just want to add a Secus and you're going to do it yourself, your suspension guys should know this, you're going to do it yourself, go back to the factory spring. The factory top cap. You got to take the Luftkappe off. The bike rides terribly. I said it in the other video. I tried it. I just had to know it's not good. Don't do it. You might as well just get some mashed potatoes and fill your fork full of it and go for a ride. It just did not feel right. The other thing, when you do this, you do have some additional changes you're going to be making. You are going to change this foot stud on the bottom. Let me come around. The foot stud is the piece that sticks through right here, the bottom of a fork, right there, and you thread this nut on with the compression washer, and this is what sticks out the hole in the bottom of your fork. So that's what you're going to change. You need to change it to a foot stud that does not have this solid end, but rather a foot stud that has ports in it so that you can continue to transition air through the system. Comes with a foot stud. The Secus doesn't really, from what I can tell, you could take this Secus off Fox 36 and throw it on a pike. The difference is you just need the right foot studs in order to do that. They look identical. If you go over to my wife's over there, it looks identical. I don't notice any difference between the two. I think the Secus itself is just an air structure that they've designed for ramping air no matter what, in a very particular air curve, and all the bikes sort of get the benefit of that depending on how much air pressure you've put in, and it's all about the foot studs. So this will move between bikes, and you can easily take the bike back to factory. You can take it off, put the factory foot stud back on, you're all done. So you can easily put the bike back, and you don't have to have the thing on there. So what are you getting here? Weight wise, you're gaining a 1/4 pound. It is attached to the lower, so it is a 1/4 pound unsprung. Luckily it's centered closer to the hub and it's not unsprung and rotational, so it's just unsprung weight. I don't think you should worry about this. I went into that somewhere else. Honestly, I just don't think you should worry about it. It's only 1/4 pound. And if you're trying to get a lot more traction and a lot more mid-stroke, you're riding fast and you're charging hard and you want the bike to have improved characteristics and all the brake bumps and all the chatter and in the rock gardens, and you want all of those things to be improved, this is well worth chewing on the 1/4 pound of weight gain and getting it added to your bike, okay? So, they say it reduces lower leg pneumatic ramp for better scalability of the air spring, particularly for light riders, and this is something I want to get into, who previously struggled to use full travel. Damn straight it does. It does that in spades. So my wife is 5'2", almost, and rides her bike anywhere from 105 to 115 pounds on average. Geared up, all the good stuff, that's, you know, gonna be her range. You are not setting up a standard fork very well for a rider that light and going to be too damn excited about how it works, and they're not going to use full travel very often. Tried and tried many setups and finally went to a Secus, and I'll be damned if she's not getting full travel. We're able to run really light air pressure. I did a whole video on how to set up a bike for a lighter rider. If you're interested in that, this is the improvement to make. That, and if you're running RockShox stuff, mag-nig that thing, tractive tune that thing up. If you're a lighter rider, go watch that video. Dude, that stuff changes the game of the bike. You're gonna be like night and day how much faster you'll be able to ride your bike because you have traction. You're not sacrificing traction for bottom out, because too low of pressure, you're gonna get your traction, but you're gonna bottom out. You come off a drop, you're gonna feel like you're going over the bars because you're always bottoming out. Too much pressure and you're sacrificing traction because you're always feeling that chatter across the trail. It's not worth it. This thing, huge improvement there. I cannot tell you. For her, we went through the entire bracketing process, and we did it on the factory suspension that the Yeti SB 130 lunch ride came with. We actually took the lunch ride and made it, I don't know, brunch ride. I think that's what I called it, a brunch ride, because now it's lunch ride in the back, 137 in the back, but we knocked it back to 150 in the front. At her height, that helped her get forward more, which is really important on a 130. And we added this, we did the testing in that, and then we did the testing with the Secus, and it was lights out. She just, all of her times came down. All of her ability to ride went way up. Her comfort and traction and control of the bike, how easily it maneuvered. I know I'm stuck on this topic for a second here. If you're building a bike for somebody, or you're building your own bike and you're under 150 pounds, this is an awesome performance upgrade. And the lighter you get, I think the better it performs, okay? So as far as for that particular component of it. Me, I'm 190 pounds geared up, riding my bike about 190, 195 pounds. I noticed great mid-stroke support. I noticed great traction in the small bump. You're gonna get big improvements when you're leaning in hard and you're feeling all that chatter. The front end just stays stuck to the ground better. And when I'm in the berms, I don't get that sort of diving or bottoming out effect. I stay very nicely in the mid-stroke. And then of course, when I do the jumps, that mid-stroke support actually improves jumping, because a lot of times you stop at the mid-stroke, and I've said I felt sometimes a little stuck there. I have. That might be a setup issue, I'm not sure. But at the mid-stroke, you come over and you're not diving down into the bottom third of the fork and dealing with the bottom out or progressively the bottom out. So in a lot of ways, it almost feels like landing is much smoother and much better. And I'm not using that part of the fork. I also would like to use that part of the fork quite a bit more than I do. So that's something I'm going to work on personally. I haven't gone and bracketed with mine. I've just ridden it based on setup, okay? You can use this on a RockShox, so if you're running it on a Debonair or a Debonair, the B1 air spring, it's better to run it on the older air spring from what I can tell based on the design. The newer air spring, they made some adjustments to push you up in the mid-stroke, but you lose some other benefits. So I would say use the older style air spring. You're probably gonna be a lot happier. So if you've got a brand new RockShox and you're still not happy, maybe go try the older air spring, slam a Secus on it, and find out that the whole fork comes to life and you're gonna be really happy with it. It is really simple to set up. It's set up your air pressure to where you like it. I've talked about sag a few times. If you're like, hey, I know sag, I set my sag, and then I go from there, good for you. I don't care so much about sag. I care more, a bike has to have sag, so I always have sag, but I care more about the overall performance on a ride. So if the sag is 18% or 41%, I just don't care. I care that the bike rides the way I want it to ride. And you get all that set up. Once you get it set up, just bounce it once or twice. Once is all you really need to do. And then on the bottom of a Secus, push the little gold button. You're done. You go ride it, the Secus is charged, everything's ready to go, okay? You do have lower compression ratios now, so it does mean you're gonna have a more consistent spring-like feel, especially in that first 2/3. You're not gonna get some of the packing up effects or some of those things. That's also, if you're having that, you might wanna work on your compression and rebound adjustments, but if not, then you're getting some of it just from erratic behavior and air as it continues to get compressed and uncompressed, okay? So lower compression in the first 2/3 also means a more consistent air spring. You're not compressing air as quickly because the air has a place to go, and so you're just going to get a really consistent and smooth feel in that first 2/3 as you come up into that as you come up into that mid-stroke valve, and you're going to be really happy with the overall effect and feel. It's also why I think you get a lot better small bump and you get a lot better traction out of it. So let's take the small bump statement out of it. You get a lot better traction out of it. That's the big thing. Okay. So, who's this for? Do you huck a bike? Are you a hucker? Okay, well, then this thing is for you, right? You don't want to gain a pound of weight. You just don't want the heavier weight of going to something like a Smash Pot or some other add-on that's very heavy. So this also then is for you. You're still being, pretty mindful about how heavy the bike gets. It's air, so it's just easier to adjust. You don't have to change coils out. So, right, if you don't want to go to some coiled fork, this is simpler to manage. It takes less time to deal with. You add a little air, you take a little air out. Whenever you change the air, you bounce it once, you push the gold button, you're back off to the races, right? So you're not getting into any issues there, okay? You want better small bump compliance and mid-stroke than your factory fork has. This is the upgrade that you should make, okay? And you like to adjust your suspension regularly, but you still want a lot of benefit. This is going to work really well because it is air, and you're going to be able to play with it, move it around, make all those adjustments out on the trail very easily, and be able to fine-tune this particular setup while you're out doing it. So you can see, I think, the dialed episode of Fox, there's on how to bracket. You follow that, learn how to do it, understand what you're looking for. You can go find it on their stuff. And once you know how to do it, you're gonna see you can really dial this thing in. You're gonna get some incredible traction benefits. I love a lot of the factory suspension. I ride a lot of stuff. It rides great. That doesn't mean you can't make incremental improvements depending on what you're trying to achieve in the way your bike rides. So just remember, depending on what you're after, there are ways to get to where you want to go, and the Secus is definitely one of them. It's a fantastic product. It really does. This is the first time when somebody says, oh, it's coil-like. It's coil-like for a lot more of the fork than any other upgrade right now. You get some of the more linear, some of the better benefits because of the way they're managing the negative air chamber. And you're gonna really see some improvement that way while still getting incredible ramp up at the end of being able to really huck this thing. If you're big jumps, drops, that kind of person. High speed coming into it, drop off and smash down, everything's gonna work wonderful. And this is a hell of an upgrade to make. I hope you liked this video. I hope you got something out of it. If you have a different experience or you have more questions, you can go to Vorsprung's website. You can go into the comments and ask questions, or just tell me your feedback. Have you ridden one and it rides different than you think or than I think? Then go ahead and let me know in the comments. And I'm looking forward to some fun debate about a Secus. So I hope you're having an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing you out on the trails.